We discuss how can cannabis businesses further support patients and patient growth by working with the organisations representing the consumers at the end of the supply chain.
Hello. Hi everyone. How are we feeling? Whoop, whoop. Almost there. It's like this is a really, really difficult slot, by the way. It's like the final dying hours. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to break all panel rules and stand up, okay? Because this is a brilliant panel that was talking about patient perspectives. But it can feel like a UK thing, that there's this kind of break in dialogue, there's this industry blind spot that's going on between the industry and the cannabis companies and the patients, who are after all at the centre of this industry. So I'm going to ask you, because I know we've got, maybe not so much now, because people are in the bar, I don't know, people in the toilet, people smoking weed outside, but we kind of have the great and the good of the cannabis industry somewhere in the vicinity of this room. So I want you guys to think, just to kind of really reflect, okay, regardless if you're a CEO, whether you've got a biotech company, you've got a lab, a clinic, you're a startup, you're an investor, do you genuinely, hands on heart, have the patient at the center of your business model? Okay, this is a question that I'm asking internationally, because I know we've got people from all over the world here, because this isn't about the UK, this isn't about Europe, this is everywhere. This crazy, crazy blind spot that's going on, that's hamstringing the industry. We can do so much better than we're doing right now. Okay, so rant over. My name's Mary, by the way. So I'm going to get my esteemed colleagues to introduce themselves. So, Jackie.
Hello to everyone. I'm Jackie Boitras. I'm from Greece. I represent the MAMAK organization, which is an organization for patients who want to use medical cannabis in Greece. And I'm also representative of the IACM Patients Council, which is an international council which we are forming at the moment under the umbrella of the IACM, in order to bring together patients' organizations from all over the world who, as it seems, basically face the same issues everywhere that they are.
Hello, my name is Hannah Deacon. I began as what I would call myself as an accidental campaigner, campaigning for my son Alfie, who has severe epilepsy, and received a license and a prescription for him in June 18. Since then, I've gone on to co-found a group called MedCan Support, because I felt very, very strongly, as did my colleagues who helped set it up, that there was not any support for children like my son Alfie and their families. We have over 500 members, we're growing all the time, we provide education and support, because believe it or not, when your child is diagnosed with a life-limiting condition in this country, you do not get any routine support from the NHS, sadly. So we're trying to bridge that gap and provide that support. I also set up a consultancy business with my friend and colleague, Professor Mike Barnes, called Maple Tree Consultants, and I work with him helping to develop the UK sector.
Hi, I'm Monique Ellis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Chillum. We are a life science company. We're headquartered in London with operations in Europe. And our R&D is focused on female pain. I'm a medicinal cannabis patient myself. So for us, it's, I kind of know it from the forefront in terms of the patient experience within the UK market.
That's great. Before I start off with the questions, I just also wanted to kind of reiterate what came out of the last panel discussion, that none of us would be sitting here right now if it weren't for the patients, okay? We have parents of patients here. On the last panel we had Zach, who is a patient. We have Corolla in the front there, who's also a patient. So not only, as Ruby said, are they your end customers, but actually it's thanks to their, as Hannah mentioned, in her own story, the campaigning, the personal sacrifice, the suffering actually that they've gone through in order to push through regulatory change. So Corolla, sorry, I got a bit emotional. Sorry. So I just want to kind of big up Corolla because since I've been in this industry, she has been fighting. And I think people forget that these are patients. These are patients, and actually their suffering and their pain or their mental health is unseen, actually, and they end up being a commodity. So I'm actually probably saying what my lovely panelists are going to say in a sec, but I just wanted to hammer home, and they are also the experts. They understand the nuances of the cannabis plant far better than anyone sitting in this room, and they also understand their bodies. So without further ado, on to the questions. Okay, so this is really to Hannah and Jackie. So what does it mean to have a patient-first approach in the medical cannabis sector, and is this reflected in the industry currently? So Jackie, what would you say?
Well, we've been hearing a lot of conversation, especially today, I would say, from companies saying that we are supportive of the patients. It's a patient-first policy that we have within our company. But I really must say that we as patients organizations don't necessarily receive that information in any tangible sort of way. One thing being that to be involved with a company means that Zach mentioned in the previous panel, that there should be representation on the boards of all of these companies, or a panel of patients in each of these companies that can manage to transfer their experience and all of the information that they have gathered over the years that they've been working, because there are thousands of hours that we have invested into either ourselves or the patients around us, and that's valuable information for these companies. But the second thing is and even more tangible, is that these organizations, you have to remember that they're all volunteer organizations. Hannah said before that she just sort of happened into this. We all happened into this. Nobody started a business to be working with patients. We were called to this, and it's not something that we can walk away from. Because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. And what is it that we're doing? We are convincing people that cannabis can help them. We are convincing politicians that cannabis can help them. We are the bridge between your companies and your customers. If I have to walk away from my organization because it's no longer financially feasible for me to do it, how much longer do I have to continue working at something on a volunteer basis without being able to pay a secretary, without being able to pay somebody to take care of my social media? These are jobs, and we are doing them for free. And how much longer do I have to say to my family, well, your mother's not being paid for what she does, but it's really important, so just hang in there. So support patients' organizations, and that kind of support is financial.
Hannah?
Yeah, I would echo that, and I don't think medical cannabis businesses should treat this business model any differently to any other service industry. You are your stakeholder. Who's your stakeholder? It's your patient and your doctor. That's how you make money. You understand what your patient wants, you understand how you can connect with doctors, and you put money behind that, because actually, what concerns me is that people see medical cannabis as a commodity and a way to make a quick buck. And you might do that, but you're not going to have longevity, you're not going to take a big market share, it's not going to be sustainable. You need to listen to patients, because that's how you develop a robust business and a long-term business, because you will continue to keep your share of patients. And I think the way you do that as well, as you said, Jackie, is support patient groups, because we are all volunteers. We work very hard because it's very personal. This is my child, this is Matt's child, this is Callie's life, the people that set up MedCan Support. this is very personal, and what you must not do is try to access that sort of information and understand that sort of information for free, because it's very valuable information, and the way you connect with patients is by supporting them financially, but also by actually asking them what they think. And I did help set up a project called Patient First recently with Volfast, which is just that. It's about companies can access patients to do focus groups, to, you know, depending on what you want to do it in, but those patients get paid. And that's really important because, you know, we all had it in medical support. We've had lots of people contact us and say, I just want to pick your brains about this. I just want you to tell me about this. But that's because it's a commercial thing that you're trying to achieve. And if you're trying to do that, then you should help those people run those organisations. And that's really, really important. And there are companies doing that, but there's not enough, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's interesting because what we're talking about a bit is reciprocity, isn't it? And like that's a word that's used in the psychedelic space because, you know, there's, you know, with ayahuasca and psilocybin, there's an origin story. They're the indigenous tribes who are the caretakers of that wisdom. And so, you know, you hear these conversations about reciprocity there, but not so much in the cannabis industry. And for me, the reciprocity there is about the patients, precisely because of what I was just speaking about. They are the ones who forged ahead and created this industry. So, and what I kind of find a little bit astounding is that it's this kind of, you know, sort of token gestures that happen at best. And it can feel like, well, we're not going to get anything in return, you know, in return. And kind of, I'm not in the business world, I guess it's the ROI, that's what you guys like to think about. But actually, you know, which we're going to hear from Monique, there is plenty of goodies to get in return, no matter where you are and what point you are in your cannabis journey with your business. So Monique, can you tell us a little bit about where you are with your company? Because I find it very interesting that, you know, you're almost at the beginning of a long journey that lays ahead, and yet you decided to take a patient-centered approach in your business model. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we heard it in the last panel, and I think yesterday as well, is that, you know, without the patient, there is no industry. Without the patient, we're not, you know, there's nothing that we're going to be getting out of bed for. And so what we've done is we've really taken the view of the patient is at the absolute heart of everything that we do, and it means that we need to make sure that when we talk about the end mile in terms of the patient engagement, when the patient receives their medication and how that engagement model actually works, you need to focus that, you need to bring it back to the beginning of your entire strategy. It needs to be front and center in your business model, and it means that you need to take in, well, what we're doing is taking a very integrated approach to our research and development. It's not just about the clinical trial or, you know, the scientific research. It's actually about fundamentally understanding what the patient wants, what level of pain they're in, what are their wishes, how do they need to be educated, how do they want to receive their medication, the delivery methods in which we need to actually build into our innovation roadmap. And with focusing that, you know, that kind of front and center approach in our qualitative and quantitative research, it means that we're from day one, we're actually building out a roadmap that is ultimately going to be, you know, best fit for that patient in the end mile. So I think that's been really key to the way that we're focusing our strategy and our business plan and our research and development. And the other aspect is we have to all partner with patient advocacy groups. It's really quite crazy. I haven't really seen anything like this. I come from a technology background, and you know, and specifically in streaming media, and your end subscriber is king. It's exactly the same. Our patients are king and queens of this industry, and we need to make sure that we're engaging with advocacy groups, and not just within the cannabis industry. We have to touch, and we have to, you know, really reach out to the broader ancillary markets. We need to make sure that when we think about patients, we've got to think about patients that are unaware, the cannabis naive patients that exist outside of the kind of small embryonic industry that we're working within. So that's really key. It means that we do need to give financial support to charities, and it should be built into your your ESG strategy. It's about social impact, and if they're not the values that are underpinning the way that you or we operate as a business, we don't have something that's scalable. We don't have something that is ultimately going to be, kind of be taken, and we won't have patients for life.
Which is a situation certainly in the UK within the private sector, that patients are going back to the illicit market because sometimes the products, quite frankly, aren't fit for purpose. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's crazy. And I feel like there's this we're banding around the term patient advocacy groups. And maybe some of you don't know what the hell a patient advocacy group is. What do they do, for God's sake, these people? So I'd love to know. I've been involved with a patient advocacy group called CPAS. Just my experience, we used to do these amazing webinars. We had a nurses arm, we were educating nurses using an MDT format. It was free educational resources. We essentially don't exist anymore because we don't have funding. The woman who founded the organisation, she could not give the time that it needed for no money. So sadly, this is not a kind of official announcement that we no longer exist, but essentially we don't because we weren't funded. So Jackie, can you tell us a little bit about Mamaka and the work that you do? And I'm also interested as well because in Greece, it's not such an established market. So I'm wondering about the work that you do and the support that you need potentially might be different to the UK with Medcan and PLE and the other organisations where there is an established market for medicinal cannabis.
Well, the law has been changed since 2017 in Greece. We were one of the first ones in Europe. Unfortunately, we will be one of the last ones to the table. Our advocacy organization was the ones who started the ball rolling on changing the law in 2016. We actually went to the minister. I had 42,000 signatures in the name of my daughter in order to make medical cannabis available to her. And that's what started the change for the law in Greece, as in so many other countries. It was some patient that asked a politician who knew nothing about this to make the change in the law. So what Mamaka has done ever since then is fill in the role of everybody else who's not in the value chain at the moment. So we don't have educated doctors, there's no product on the market, and there's no education being happened to the patients. So we do all of these things. We are still working on the law. The law was just changed recently. We're going one step forward and 3 steps back. So imports were actually forbidden into Greece last November. I would love any company who really wants to get into the Greek market to get out there and lobby the government, maybe change things so we can get some product out there to patients. So the end result is that not one patient in Greece has had legal cannabis given to him from 2017. So we're out there every day educating people, helping them find product on the illegal market. I, as a patient's organization, have to facilitate that because there's no product for them. So you understand how difficult this could be. And we're also, unfortunately, having to fill in the role of doctors. Because we don't have doctors who can prescribe. Doctors don't feel comfortable saying to their patients to use cannabis because, of course, if they can't legally prescribe it, which they can, according to law, but we don't have any product in Greece. So we are playing all of these different roles. If we stop doing that, then we're just going to close the door on medical cannabis in Greece. That's the end result.
Thanks, Jackie. Hannah, tell us about Medcan.
So when I moved to Holland in 2017, I know it must sound a bit weird, but I thought I was the only mother in the world with a child with epilepsy. I thought that no one knew the pain that I felt. I felt very, very alone. And other than really speaking to a woman called Vera Toomey from Ireland, who I want to have a big shout out to her because she's absolutely amazing and inspiring to move to Holland. So thank you to her. I moved to Holland when she was there, but I felt very isolated. I felt very traumatised. I felt very alone. As I said, I didn't get any support from the NHS other than getting my son well when he was in hospital. I didn't have any mental health support, sadly. And when I'd done my campaign and got Alfie's prescription, I met Matt, whose son Charlie has severe epilepsy, and you know, we worked together, and we worked within Endar Pain. So Endar Pain is a lobby group on medical cannabis. And it was very apparent to us that there was still no support network. And actually, I'm sure you'll all resonate with, when you're in a bad position, if someone can understand that position, it doesn't take it away, but it just makes it feel a bit easier if you can talk to someone who understands how you feel. And that's how MedCan began. And we have over 500 members now in our private Facebook group. It's well used regularly, and it gives a lot of support to very vulnerable people who feel very frightened because their child is very, very poorly. And we've expanded on that. So during lockdown, we did lots of webinars, and I don't want to take any credit actually, because Matt did all the work. He's sitting in the front here, so thank you to Matt for doing the most amazing job with MedCan. Callie and I just hold his hand and have lots of fun with him, but you know, he is MedCan, so thank you to him. And we've created education hubs, we've got doctors on our support, on our research and our clinical support groups, and you know, we are vital to many people, and we give lots of information to them, so when clinics are opening, what products are available, if there's problems with the supply chain. And all of those things are really, really important, but again, we are volunteers and we cannot expand the work we do without being supported. And I think, you know, what you were saying about CPAS is really sad, because again, you're going back to that point of who are you serving in what you do, and that's why keeping advocacy groups going is absolutely vital to this developing market, because otherwise there is no connection with patients. And also, to touch on the final thing, is that we need to access naive patients as well. I fear that we live in this little bubble of people at the moment, and patients at the moment, who know about cannabis. The only way we're going to reach millions and millions and millions of people in this country is by supporting advocacy groups who can go out and talk to naive patients and attend conferences and create education and all those sorts of things, because companies can't do that, but we can. And that's why we are vital to the development of this sector.
Thanks, Hannah. I mean, for me, it's just so clear. It's so clear that you guys need to get on board with this. And I'm going to go to Monique now, because it can feel like, you know, essentially no one is making money yet in this industry. So like supporting advocacy groups can seem like something when you're a little bit higher up the hierarchy of needs and making some serious cash. But I'm interested to hear, Monique, you know, you've decided to take this approach right from the beginning. And I'm interested to know, and actually, certainly in the UK, just to kind of big up the women CEOs, so far it's women-led companies who, despite the fact they're in very, very early stages, are supporting advocacy groups. I don't know what that's about, but it's something interesting to ponder. But Monique, what's to kind of gain from you know, supporting right from the get-go?
You need to be able to move, like in order to move the needle, you have to be able to partner with patients. You have to be able to walk in their shoes, so to speak. You have to understand what, you know, where the challenges are in terms of barriers to entry, again in education. You know, I think also we're dealing with a huge issue in terms of price and availability. And if we can make a difference by supporting a patient event, which there's one in November. If you don't know about it, you should definitely get in touch with Drug Science. And MedCan. It's the first patient,
which you're sponsoring, right, Monique?
Yes, which we're sponsoring. I'm very proud to. And if we can, you know, make a difference to that one event, or to 1 or 5 different families, and their quality of life to their children or to a patient themselves, then for us we're kind of doing our job, and we're staying true to our mission and our values. But I think, you know, sometimes it's, I think it was mentioned the other day, it's quite a luxury to be able to actually start to roll out an R&D program before, you know, profitable, or if you're running, you know, rolling through and trying to complete a funding round, is ultimately, it's not a luxury, it's a must-have. You really, you know, you need to invest in it. It needs to be core, as I mentioned, to the business plan, and you need to make the right budget considerations. And so I think that the other point I mentioned is, if you have not heard about that patient event, you know, please do get in contact with MedCan and Drug Science, and a contribution of, you know, 500, 1,000, 10,000 will go a really, really long way. And it allows us to kind of really focus as an industry on doing more and more. I'm a patient myself. I've struggled with endometriosis for 20 years. The entire process is far from ideal. And so I have had the fortunate experience of going through a pretty painstaking experience in terms of getting a prescription in the first place. So I think there's an added benefit to actually why we needed to take this approach to the way that we're kind of pushing ahead with our business and our strategy.
Thank you. So, the clock's kind of jumped up a little bit. It's interesting. So we've got does that mean we're doing a good job? Let's see. Let's go with it. So, well, I think it's always helpful to have a kind of takeaway for everyone here to sort of go home and consider. So, Jackie, what would be your takeaway? How can, if anybody feels, I don't know, like this has struck a chord and they want to act on this, what can they do? What would be your takeaway message?
Contact the patients' organizations. There's one near you. No matter what country you're in, or if you don't really know where to begin, you could contact the IACM Patients Council. It's iacmpatients.com. And we could bring you into contact with a patients organization in the country that you're working in. Reach out to the patients organizations, because I think we've made it all very clear today exactly how much value they add to this entire process. And I'd like to go back to something. My background is disability. My daughter is severely disabled. She's 22 years old now. So all of the years that she was in school, I was very active in the disability community. In the 1960s, the disability community came up with a motto, which was nothing about us without us. And the disability movement moved ahead with this motto for years. Point being getting across that you cannot make decisions about a disabled person, be it you're a politician or a doctor or anything else, without the involvement of this group of people. And it's the same thing. You have to involve us in this process. So no more decisions for us, be that a politician making that decision, or a company who's looking at the marketplace for that company, lobbying for laws that will help out the company or the process of the market, but not looking at the fact that the patient is the one that needs to be helped here. So everything has to be built around this, and if you're not doing it at the moment, take a very critical look at your company and see where this has to be placed within your system. And hopefully this is going to be the last event where we have to talk about this. And then the next event we can start talking about how we are now working together and we're all in a better place. Thank you.
Follow that, Hannah.
Wow, so you said everything. No, I think the most important thing to me is absolutely everything you said, Jackie. You're such a wonderful speaker, but every day that you go into the office, you need to think about who you're working for, who is your stakeholder, what are you doing this for, and if you're focused on your margins, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. You need to be focused on who you serve, which is your patient and your doctors in some respect as well. And I think when you start doing that, you'll start winning. And finally, I would just say as well, is that when we talk about financial support, we are not talking about give us 50 grand. We're talking about a direct debit of £200 a month that helps us to do more work. If 10 companies did that for MedCan, we could actually someone could work for MedCan and be paid to do that work. We also are raising money to support families with mental health support and also short breaks, because I'm not sure if any of you know this, but in the UK, if you are a full-time carer to a child, and mostly those full-time carers are mothers, I was a full-time carer for 6 years when my son was seriously ill. Do you know how much parent carers get paid from the government to look after their children 24/7? It's £64 a week. So I was paid £64 a week to take care of my son 24/7. And now I don't need to take that benefit because he's really well. And I feel really strongly that we need to position Medcan to support those families, but also that's why we really care about access to medical cannabis in this country, because there's 37,000 children in this country with refractory epilepsy, and as far as I'm concerned, that's 37,000 mothers who should be at work, like I am now, earning money and paying my taxes, and I feel seen. And when I was a full-time carer, I was not seen. So this is why our work is so important, and a small direct debit every month means that we can develop our organisation, we can connect with businesses, we can get out there and talk to more MPs, we can do more work, but we can only do that with the support of this industry. So that's my takeaway.
And it's so easy. It's like, it's not some big, huge, insurmountable thing. I love that. It's just like a small, easily done chunk.
It makes you feel really good.
Bonus. Okay, Monique.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Let patients in and let them help drive your innovation roadmap.
Love it. Okay. Well, thanks to my wonderful panel, and thanks to everyone who stayed for this discussion at the end of 2 days, where the bar is calling, and there are far more interesting, exciting things to be done. But it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.